Well, it's one of the most common questions. It's funny. The answer is a whole series of bad decisions, one compounding on the other. And I'd homebrewed a little bit in December of '92, and by December '93, I had a brewery open. I was just smitten from the first batch.
My name's Ron Lindenbush. I've been the beer weasel at Lagunitas for about 16 years now. I've met Tony at the Paper Mill Creek Saloon out in Forest Knolls, right out by Lagunitas, and I met him while he was selling kegs out of the back of his pickup truck, and I just never looked back. It's kind of funny, I read something, an article that Tony had been quoted in back in the early '90s, saying if we ever have to sell beer more than 100 miles outside the brewery, he'd consider us a failure.
We started out in the hobby brewing revolution. Jimmy Carter legalized home brewing in '79, and though some of us weren't even born, we had fathers that were home brewers, or it's fun to say, like, I made a batch and do it on your kitchen sink, and then open them up and be like, hot damn, that actually tastes pretty good. Very inspiring, and so there's a lot of home brewers out there that have kind of seeded commercial brewing. So my story's really no different than that.
We started the brewery in West Marin. We were on a septic system, and after we were there for about 8 months, there's a lot of stuff in beer, a lot of nutrients in beer, as well as all the yeast. And
what he was doing is he was dumping the yeast down the septic system. We put yeast in beer, it feeds off of sugar. You put it in a septic system, it's going to feed off of something else. It starts with an S, and it's going to plug it up. So
I guess it kind of gave the septic an attitude, and one day it looked up through the drain and said, "Get out of here, boys." And we didn't argue with it. So I thought about where the nicest possible drive out of West Marin, where I live and still live, would be, and that was to Petaluma. So that's the sole reason why we're here. But over the years, being in Petaluma has been fabulous. It's a very cool city in between places. It's still old school 50s. It's got enough modern stuff that it's a cool place. So.
To the left, we have 10 300-barrel fermenters. So a barrel is 2 kegs, so that's 600 kegs times 10. And on the right, we have 10 500-barrel fermenters. And as Lagunitas has grown throughout the years, we've just been adding more tanks. And right now, we can't really add more tanks. We're at capacity. People are drinking too much good beer. They need to slow down.
We had an 80-barrel system that we bought a few years ago, and we've already outgrown it. So, we're running 24/7 right now. And this summer's going to be a stretch to keep up, but by next summer, we'll have the new system in place, and it's just demand in existing markets. Just more and more people drinking beer, drinking our beer especially. So.
We want to have one thing that we do really well, and that's the IPA. And the IPA is actually like 65% of our total sales. So all those other beers put together, they're the fun that we have with brewing. And while I said the names and the stuff on the label kind of come out of the Society of the Brewery, the recipes and stuff really are our attempts to have beer teach us more about brewing. And so because we always want to stretch, you always want to kind of keep the creative juices flowing, and we're looking for new ideas and new inspirations. And unexpected things will happen when you start experimenting all the time. And the seasonals are our way to do that. And sometimes we learn some crazy new things, about flavor combinations that I wouldn't have guessed.
We were trying to make our old gnarly wine in '97, and the year before, our head brewer had put a bunch of honey in the batch, and he didn't write it on the brew sheet, though. He just had the grain bill and the hop bill and everything. So, the brown sugar came out of a conversation that they forgot to put the honey in. So. They came into my office and they said, "We're not getting the sugar off the mash. What's going on?" And I said, "Well, how much honey did you put in?" And they said, "What honey?" I said, "Scott put 200 pounds of honey in last year." And they were like, "Oh, we just got the boil going. We'll go to the store." I said, "How many fucking teddy bears is that?" It's like, what are you gonna do? So they called Tony at home, caught him, and he said, "Go get brown sugar and dump that in the beer." So we bottled it as another name other than Old Gnarly Wine, called it Brown Sugar. Tony put "How come you taste so good" on the bottom of the label, and a little Rolling Stones tongue coming out of the dog. And but at the top, instead of temporary release or limited release, it said accidental release, which I thought was kind of cool, like in a toxic waste spill sort of way.
Designing a really new killer beer, you can't do it in an evening. You got to work at it, months over months over months. All of Tony's recipes that, we brew here at Lagunitas, he was brewing in his garage on a on a little 3.5 barrel system, you know, he would probably tell you that not all of them turned out.
I mean, so we've had some monumental flops. We had not quite a Pilsner, you know. So they don't all work. So the thing is that the ones that don't work don't get seen very often, disappear a quiet death.
He mentioned some other beers that didn't quite make the cut, you know, like Ragwater and stuff, but he didn't mention Eye of the Hairball, which is one that is one of my personal favorite flops ever. We made Hairy Eyeball, and then he decided to follow it up with Eye of the Hairball, and I thought, well, that's not nearly the same sort of connotation as an eyeball. A hairball is totally different. So we put it out there, and it just didn't sell for shit. So I always say we never even bothered making Hair of the Dog Ball.
When you go to the supermarket and you look at our beer, all the other brothers and sisters on either side of it, all those other beers, all the inputs to the beer, the yeast, the hops, the malt, it's all mass marketed, available to anyone. So the only thing that's really unique to a brewery is the water and the people making it, the brewers, and the culture. Not to say if you go to other breweries, you'll see Randy Macho Man things everywhere, but you'll see something. And there'll be a reoccurring strange thing. Every brewery has its one little muse, its one little quirk, you know? And if you go to a brewery that doesn't have that, I'd be leery. I wouldn't drink their beer. Okay. You need to make sure that they're just a little bit off. And we like to celebrate that we're way off, but you know, not too off. We're all about the beer.
Well, you know, we're not growing. The idea of breweries growing or not growing, and somehow there's virtue in not growing, or there's there's power in growing. It's a lot of nonsense. I just heard a brewery up the street talk about how they don't really have any growth plans like Lagunitas or Stone, as if that's other. You know, it's odd. You know, if you want to stay small, you stay small. If you want to grow, either you are jamming it down people's throats and jamming something the market doesn't really want yet onto the market, or you're doing what we're doing, and that's just following that thread. You know, as long as there seems to be organic demand for our beer and more people want to drink it than we have current capacity to make for, then we're going to make more beer. That's as simple as that. And someday we may find that limit, you know, and when we find that limit, that's the natural and happy place to stop, you know. You filled your ecological niche. Of course, could be an ecological niche, as you know, it involves global dominance, but no one will know.
That was your chance to get run over.
Okay, so you go ahead and ask questions. I'm just gonna text and send emails and stuff. You know,
The jetter is a fine stream of sterile water, the thickness of one of my hairs, and I have very fine hair.
Checkity foot.
How's that? Does that seem to work better for you? Yeah. Test. You still there?
Because we're very passionate about what we do, but at the end of the day, it's just beer. We take it very, very seriously, but it is just beer.
With that, that's pretty much it. Now turn that thing.